Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into something you probably use every single day, but maybe don't think too much about. We're talking about the road itself, the literal foundation of our modern world, right under our tires. I mean, seriously, have you ever been driving down the highway and just wondered, what is actually holding up my car? It can't just be a layer of blacktop smeared over some dirt, right? Well, you're right. There's a hidden world of engineering down there, and the star of that show has a pretty technical sounding name.
And here it is, Wet Mix Macadam, or as the pros call it, WMM. Now, I know it sounds complicated, but think of it as the powerhouse layer of the road. It's the super precise mix of crushed rock, sand, and just the right touch of water, all engineered to create an incredibly strong and stable foundation when it's all packed down.
So, what's the big deal with WMM? Well, older roads were often just compacted gravel, but this is a huge leap forward. It's not just a base layer. It's a high-tech engineered core that gives the final asphalt surface all of its strength and durability. And we are talking about a serious layer of material here. A single layer of this wet mix macadam can be anywhere from 75 to 250 millimeters thick. Now, for those of us who don't think in millimeters, that's almost 10 inches. That massive thickness is what gives the road its core strength, letting it handle the weight of thousands of cars and trucks day in and day out. So how do you make this stuff? Well, you can't just grab any old rocks and sand from the side of the road. Oh no. Creating WMM is kind of like baking a high-performance cake. It needs a very specific recipe with very specific ingredients. And if you get even one part of that recipe wrong, the whole thing can fail. These numbers you're looking at aren't just suggestions. They are hard and fast rules for our ingredients. The LA abrasion and impact values, that's just a fancy way of testing how tough the stone is, how well it can resist being crushed or worn down. And the water absorption has to be super low because water is pretty much the #1 enemy of a stable road. But this one's my favorite. The limit on flaky and elongated particles. Why on earth does the shape of the rocks matter so much? Well, think about it like this. Imagine you're building a wall. Would you rather use perfectly shaped Lego bricks that lock together or a pile of thin, splintery wood chips? The bricks, right? It's the same idea here. You need chunky, cube-like stones that interlock to give you maximum strength. And, whoa. Okay, this table looks like something out of a science textbook, I know. But this is the secret sauce. This is the grading, or the exact formula for that road cake we're talking about. See how it starts at the top? 100% of the mix has to be smaller than a 53 millimeter sieve, so no giant boulders. Then it specifies the exact percentages for smaller and smaller particles, all the way down to a tiny bit of dust. This makes sure every single little gap is filled, creating a super dense, super strong final product.
Okay, I know that table was a lot, so let's just boil it down. Forget the numbers for a sec. At its heart, the recipe is really this simple. You've got a big portion of coarse, chunky aggregates for the main strength. Then you've got your fine aggregates to fill in the bigger gaps. And finally, a tiny but totally critical amount of dust to fill in every last little void. Every single part has a job to do.
And get this, the science goes all the way down to the dust. Even the finest particles, the stuff smaller than 425 microns, have to pass something called a plasticity index test. This basically makes sure that the dust acts like a good glue, binding everything together, without being too much like clay. Because if it was too clay-like, it would soak up water, expand, and just destroy the road from the inside out. See? Every single grain of sand is accounted for.
All right, so we've got our perfect recipe. Now what? How does this go from a formula in a lab to the actual pavement you're driving on? Well, let's follow the journey from the mixing plant all the way to the roadbed.
The whole process really has 4 key steps. First, you've got to get the surface underneath perfectly clean and level. Then, back at a special plant, all those ingredients are mixed with water with incredible precision. After that, it's rushed to the site and spread out in a nice, even layer. And finally comes the magic part. It all gets compacted into a solid, dense mass. And when I say the mixing is precise, I am not kidding. Check out this quote from the official guidelines. The amount of water in the mix can't vary by more than plus or minus 2%. That's an insanely narrow window to hit. If it's too wet, the whole thing turns to mush. Too dry, and it just won't pack down right. Next up, a specialized machine called a paver finisher lays the mix down. Its whole job, its entire purpose in life is to create a perfectly uniform layer.
You can't have pockets of just big rocks over here or just sand over there. That evenness is absolutely critical for the road to last. Okay, now we're at what is arguably the most important part of the entire process, compaction. This is the moment where that loose pile of wet gravel gets transformed into a single interlocking, incredibly strong layer of road. And it's not just about squishing it flat. This is an art form that's guided by physics.
And I really mean it when I say it's an art. The giant rollers don't just drive back and forth randomly. No way. They follow a strict, choreographed pattern. For a regular road that's higher in the middle, a cambered road, they start rolling at the outside edges and slowly work their way to the center. For a banked curve, they start at the low edge and work their way up to the high edge. This is all done to make sure the density is perfectly even across the whole thing. And check this out. The top speed for that massive, heavy roller is just 5 kilometers per hour. That's basically a brisk walk. This process isn't about speed at all. It's about slow, methodical pressure, giving all those little particles of rock time to settle and lock into place as tightly as possible.
So what's the goal of all this slow, careful rolling? Perfection. The target density out on the actual road has to be at least 100% of the maximum possible density that they got with the same exact material back in a controlled lab setting. They are literally trying to replicate a perfect lab result, but on a massive scale. So the layer is down, it's been compacted. We're done, right? Not even close. Now it's time for the final exam, a whole series of tough quality control tests to make sure all that science and careful work actually paid off. First up, the level of the surface. Across the entire road, the level can't be off by more than plus or minus 10 millimeters. That's about the thickness of a smartphone. Just think about trying to get that level of precision over a construction area that's hundreds of meters long. And when it comes to smoothness, it's even stricter. If you take a 3-meter straight edge, that's about 10 feet long, and lay it anywhere on the surface, the biggest gap you're allowed to have underneath it is only 8 millimeters. This is exactly what prevents those annoying bumps and dips you feel on a poorly made road. And this isn't just a one-and-done check at the end. As you can see here, the testing is relentless. It happens constantly throughout the process. They're required to test the recipe, the gradation, once for every 500 cubic meters they put down. They check the rock strength every 1,000 cubic meters. And they're out there testing the density every 2,000 square meters. Quality isn't just inspected at the end. It's built in every single step of the way. So what's the big takeaway here? That smooth, simple, maybe even boring road surface you drive on every day, it's a lie, but in the best way possible. It's hiding this incredible amount of science, precision, and hard work. So the next time you're cruising down the highway, ask yourself, are you just looking at a road? Or are you looking at a quiet, rolling feat of engineering? Thanks for watching The Explainer.